Bicentennial celebration. The country was in the midst of that lead-in year, and so every time you turned the television on, you saw something about the bicentennial celebration. And as an African American, I personally felt left out. I mean, I didn't feel that I had anything to be excited about the bicentennial celebration, what George Washington did, what Nathan Hale and all these old patriots did, because in my mind, all these guys was supported slavery. So, we began, me, Miriam, Bill, Will Brown, began to kick around the idea of having some kind of a black celebration in response to the bicentennial. And I remember that we'd had a staff person by the name of Armand Duvernay, who had come out of Texas, or spent some time in Texas, and who had told me about this celebration that they had each year in Texas. And I just vaguely remember the name of it, and I thought he said Juneteenth.
The Juneteenth, first of all, Juneteenth was a celebration that began throughout the South, especially in Louisiana and Texas, after the slaves learned that they were free. And jubilant celebrations took place all over the South. Most folks in the North a lot of them have not heard of Juneteenth.
We dug up some information on it and thought it'd be a good idea to use it in Buffalo to counter what was going on with the bicentennial celebration.
The organization had accomplished a great deal of its objectives. We had developed a sense of proper housing. We had some inroads in education. We had certain organizational, we had developed certain organizational skills, and we felt now was the time to come together and celebrate our accomplishments. And it was, and thinking about celebrating our accomplishments, we felt very happy about it. And relating to Juneteenth was easy for us because Juneteenth was, from its inception, was a time of gaiety, a time of joy. So we felt that joy. And for that reason, we say, okay, let's move Juneteenth from the state of Texas to Buffalo, New York.
The Juneteenth celebration took us 2 years in planning before we ever got to the fact of having a Juneteenth. We went up and down Jefferson, from Jefferson and Best all the way to Jefferson and East Ferry, talking to everyone in the area about Juneteenth, explaining to them what Juneteenth was, explaining that what we would hope to accomplish with the Juneteenth Festival. One was the revitalization of Jefferson Avenue back to the state it used to be, when it was a bustling area full of business and shops where people came and gathered, families met. You could find anything you wanted on Jefferson, from hardware stores, banks, from eateries, anything, cleaners, you name it. Jefferson was a thriving business section. We wanted to stimulate that and get people back into the idea of coming back, doing business on Jefferson and revitalizing that area.
Aside from the economics of it, of course, there is a cultural side, and art is being a part of culture and being a part of our culture. We had quite a few very talented young people in the community at that time. I was primarily interested in and involved in the visual arts, because there were dancers and there were other performance arts. But I was primarily involved in the visual arts, the painters, people who drew murals. What we did, one of the interesting things that we did prior to the Juneteenth was to kind of fix up the place, you know. We had some dilapidated buildings on Jefferson. We had some things that weren't up to par that you would be proud to be have your work in front of. So what we did, we got a committee of people, interested people, artists and otherwise, to go around, up and down the street, and we boarded up the front of old buildings, things that we thought were not too kosher. We boarded up the buildings, painted on the buildings, you know, first, and then had different artists to come along and do their thing on them, do murals and paintings and portraits on the buildings, which was in preparation for Juneteenth, so that by the time Juneteenth came around, we felt very proud of the atmosphere that we had created by blocking out the blight. There was quite a bit of blight sometime on Juneteenth. So in doing so, that gave the artists a chance to get out and do their thing and make a contribution. That would be not only just the artists, by the way. The artists would be the facilitators. They would be the one who would be in charge. But people in the community would come along. We had buckets of paint, brushes, just waiting for people to come along. The little kids, adults would come by and let me paint, and they would paint something with, you know, a little under the direction of the artist, but they would do what they wanted to do on the building, and that's what made it really nice, that it was a community involvement, even in preparing the streets and the buildings for Juneteenth.
It was a major project, and for about 9 months before it happened, I think the organization turned all of its resources almost to making Juneteenth happen. We talked to people who had done festivals similar to that. We got the gentleman who had created or helped to create the Allentown Arts Festival to meet with us and to consult with us and tell us how to do it. We had to organize everything. You know, none of us had ever done anything like this before. So it was a major enterprise.
It wasn't an easy task because, one, nothing like that had been done. And you always have your skeptics who say it can't be done, or you're doing it in the wrong place, or and then you got to understand that we were doing it with an organization that really didn't have any money. And that's another one of the misnomers. A lot of people thought that the B.U.I.L.D organization was a rich organization. It wasn't. It was rich in talent, and it was rich in volunteer effort, and it was rich in brain power, because people knew what they wanted to do and they didn't mind giving of themselves and their time to do it. But it wasn't rich in money, resources, that kind of resource to put together the Juneteenth Festival. But what it did is it took people from all over the community who were interested. It took the Mrs. Sims and the Judson Prices and all of those types of people and the Luther Burnett's and all of those who wanted to do something to pull this together, and that's exactly what happened. It came about as a really good festival.
We had total, I can say, total participation from the community, from the city, county. Every agency basically was involved in Juneteenth, not just showing up involved in the planning. We had other organizations, Urban League, NAACP. They all sent representatives, CAO, to meetings of the Juneteenth meetings. The National Guard, you name it, streets and sanitation. City Hall was involved, the firemen, everybody was there in the planning of the Juneteenth Festival. We got all these things that various health agencies were there we wanted churches, black clubs, you name it, we had it. It was a total community thing. B.U.I.L.D was the umbrella group, but it was a community thing that was taking place.
You were trying to get permits and vendors and people to participate, and there was a lot of coordination, a lot of making sure that we contacted every group that we thought could be involved in a parade, and that there was coordination trying to get the city or the county to allow us to use the library that was over there on Jefferson and Utica for certain of the activities that were over there, to get some of the businesses in that up and down Jefferson Avenue to participate and to work with us, to get some of the marching groups, and I think at that time we had marching groups coming from as far away as Rochester, I believe. They weren't all just local groups. And it was coordinating those kinds of activities and events and getting in contact with a lot of people. And you got to remember, you didn't have at that time a lot of paid staff that could have helped. So most of this was a volunteer effort. I think I put together the first brochure for Juneteenth. And what we were trying to do was show two sides of a city. And I think if you look at that brochure, the first one that we did, you'd see a city that had beautiful houses, nice neighborhoods, and then you'd see the city that we lived in, that we dwelled in. And we wanted people to say that this can't be, this is not right. And what we were trying to do is bring a lot of attention to it, but also bring the neighborhoods together, bring people downtown to Jefferson Avenue.
It caught on, the idea. People didn't even know how to say the word, but I think what I discovered is that there were a lot of people in Buffalo who felt the same way I did about the bicentennial. So when the Juneteenth thing came along, African Americans was happy to find something that they could identify with. So our meetings were very well attended. We had several special committees for entertainment, for concessions, for the Malik and Malika contest, for sports, for youth, for seniors. We had several committees working in at the same time on all these things, and it was just nice to see all that pull together, come together, and the festival occur when it did.
To our first annual Juneteenth celebration in Buffalo and Western New York. that was a spectacle to behold. The first one, I think we took in for the 3-day, when I said 3 days, I'm talking about the Malik and Malika contest, which was held on that was the opening event for the Juneteenth Festival. Then we would have the Friday and Saturday. The 3-day event, we drew a total of 75 to 100,000 people. I had never seen that many people come together in a joyous, peaceful atmosphere as they did for those events. And it stretched down, just looking up and down Jefferson, standing at one point, all you could see was people enjoying themselves, their wares and stuff. You know, the parade stretched, I would say, the very first one, it took at least 15 minutes to even just start lining them up. Well, in order for you to see the whole parade, I guess it took about a half an hour for it to pass your section. We had groups out of Pennsylvania, Rochester, and we offered prizes to the best drill team, the best marching unit. And these things attracted people from all over. Plus, we had a drill-a-rama that culminated in War Memorial Stadium at the end of the parade. So there was things going on for everybody. Malik and Malika contest, which is King and Queen in Swahili, was organized as a means of showing off some of the finest young men and women in our community. It was a contest set up mainly to help also bring in funds for the organization by having a contest. The one that we got sponsors such as Pepsi, a lot of the other companies, Coke and the others, to donate, Sears, donate products and prizes for the contest. The contestants were responsible for selling what we call ads. They would sell ads, raffles, and the one who sold the most would be crowned Malik or Malika. And it was a very successful event. The very first one, thinking back, was the Malik, and the Malika was Ruby Highsmith. The Malik was a gentleman by the name of Arthur Poe.
In the beginning of the Juneteenth, our business owner here in Buffalo, New York, my place of business was the Midnight Cowboys Lounge, and I've always tried to be sort of active in different things that takes place in the city of Buffalo. And I was invited to come to some meetings at the B.U.I.L.D headquarters. That was back in '76, I believe, when we first started talking about it. And I wasn't supposed to be a runner-up of King. I was supposed to have been one to help get this started. After weeks of struggles and meetings and whatever we had, there come a time where we was running short of money. And so we was something like $1,600 short. So they gave me 2,000 tickets. I went back to my place of business and I began to sell tickets. The next day I walked in, I gave Bill Gator $900. He looked at me and he says, "Cowboy, where you get this from?" I says, "We got friends in Buffalo." So he says, "Great, you think we're gonna be able to get the other?" And I says, "Well, if I don't sell the tickets, I'll donate it to the Juneteenth." On Friday, I called Bill Gator, and I told him, I says, "Bill Gator," I says, "I'm still selling tickets." I said, "Now tomorrow I'll have your other money." He said, "Just the $600? I says, "I don't know." So the next day I walked up, I handed him $900. He says, "I thought you was only gonna get 6. I said, "That's okay." So we ran up, and I ended up winning, being the king of Juneteenth with my queen, Ruby Highsmith.
But I was blessed that I had a community action organization that was backing me, that sponsored me, paid for my gown, made it possible for me to sell numerous tickets. I had a team that worked with me very highly, and from what I was told from my manager, Charlie T. Perkins from CAO, he was saying that you have to be assertive, for one thing. He said they're looking for a community-related person, somebody that's involved and who cares about people.
It was just a beautiful thing. The first one we had so much pride, and was given, first of all, the TV stations had on mine, had the contestants on, especially doing fashion shows and things of this nature. And it was something that hadn't been done before, and it turned out well.
And up and down the Jefferson Avenue, you could smell barbecue and hot dogs, and we had the Canadians coming over with the bagpipes, and that was the inauguration of the Juneteenth T-shirt, and a great deal of things. So I think also it was an opportunity for people that had gone through this 5-10 year struggle to come together, to walk the streets of Buffalo, Jefferson Avenue, and to see individuals that we hadn't seen for years. They were like in holes, and here they can come out of a hole and say, "Here I am." So there were people there that I hadn't seen since high school, since the time I was at Lafayette High School. It was the first time seeing them, and just to know that they were all still around, they were doing well, and they had children had children. So it was a way of just coming together and saying, not only do we have a Juneteenth, we have a family reunion, we have a community reunion.